Welcome back to the show, folks. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. It's Tuesday evening. Beautiful evening out there here down in the Garden of Ireland down in Wicklow. Absolutely stunning weather today, thank God. Break from all that rain and stuff like that. But tonight is Tuesday night. We're back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring. This is the penultimate episode, just one to go. And we'll squeeze that one in this week as well because I'm off on my holidays next week for about 2 weeks. So you're going to get a lot of recorded shows, not too many lives. We'll be pulling stuff from the vault, all sorts of good, cool stuff that we used to do out there. Good blend and mix of wrestling and football, all that kind of stuff. With a couple of videos thrown in from on location where I am. I like to do that as well. But this is Dark Side of the Ring review, and it's Bash at the Beach 2000. Certainly controversial. But before we get into the episode, make sure you've subscribed to the channel, but you're not still moonlighting. We know there's a few of you out there still moonlighting. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit the bell notification, and drop a like on the video. Don't forget to check out our SummerSlam reaction that myself and Ian did on Sunday night. It's up there on the channel. Some interesting thoughts on SummerSlam and how it went and what our thoughts were. And there was some great input from the chat and stuff like that. As always, we really appreciate the chat's involvement. And also check out, I did a drive time this morning about Liverpool Football Club, that the internal war that's going on there at the moment between John Henry and Jurgen Klopp and Jörg Schmadtke, I think is his name. So if you're a Liverpool fan, check that one out. Tomorrow morning we will have a transfer update one for you. It's going to be a busy week, folks. Thursday we're back with Thursday Tier Talk. We're going to be doing a preview of the Premier League. We're going to be bringing back Beat the Bookie, all those good things we used to do during the season. They're all going to be back with you Thursday night. Around 8:30, I think it'll be. 7:30, you're going to catch me on Del Boy Gunner TV. We're going to be doing a preview for the Premier League. He's bringing on a host of people who follow different clubs and stuff like that to give their views on the season ahead. So look forward to that. Always love being on with Dell and Kyle and Warren and all the boys. Always good crack and stuff like that. Make sure you're supporting their channels as well. Get Dell Boy up to the 1,000 subs. The man is electric and well deserves at this stage. So make sure anyone off the upper tier, if you haven't subbed to Dell Boy Gunner TV yet, or Warren's Team Talk, or Kyle Walsh Gunner, get over there and sub to those guys. Absolutely electric. You don't even have to be an Arsenal fan to enjoy the content. The content's great. But yeah, Bash at the Beach. Here we go. Let's see what we think of this. Of course, it was controversial at so many levels and stuff like that. Big shout out to Clutch as well for the graphic. It's absolutely lethal. I thought he'd use this one, even though Bischoff isn't in it. And I have to say, September, I'm going to the evening with Eric Bischoff, going to meet him. We did briefly meet him, was it 2 years ago? Maybe last year, I think it was, in Dallas. And we met him at WrestleCon, him and his son who used to wrestle in TNA. We had a bit of a chinwag with them at the bar, but we're going to go to the evening, have a bit of crack with Eric Bischoff in September. So that should be a bit of fun. And we'll get his thoughts on Dark Side of the Ring. But yeah, it's been quite a journey this season. Tough one, you know, a lot of tragedy as always is in there. Cocktail of drugs and drink and misfortune and missed opportunity and death and all that kind of stuff. That total mix that creates that stew of Dark Side of the Ring. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes next season now, because obviously with the issues, the financial issues that Vice is having and stuff like that, they're probably going to have to try and find a new home for it and trying to figure out where that would go. It kind of fits perfectly onto a platform like Vice. But let's see where it goes after this season. Hopefully they continue doing it. And they do touch on some interesting ones. But this one is it's an interesting one insofar as it's not necessarily about drug addiction or drink or, you know, or death, although some people would say it was part of the death of WCW, as we heard in the episode, the Hulkster on the mic when it all went down in the ring, and he was saying this is why this company is dying and all this kind of thing. And I tell you, he wasn't too far wrong, but he certainly had a part to play in it, that's for sure. But the episode kind of centers around it's an interesting dynamic because you probably won't find 5 characters who probably dislike each other more than these 5 characters. I know Jeff would be close enough with Vince Russo. We all know Cornette's feeling on it. We know the side that Bischoff takes. He's, of course, with the Hogan camp. And it's a certainly interesting dynamic in this one because we kind of have a collection of truths and we have a collection of lies, and it's all spread across all the main features guys in this, really, you know. But it starts off with Vince Russo and it talks about his pathway into WCW, and you know he was saying he was being a wrestling fan, I think, since '91 or something like that. He got into the business, and we know the story about how he got into WWE. Originally, he was involved in a video and music store and all that kind of stuff, and then he got involved in the WWE magazine and then moved his way up to a writing position and booker and all that kind of stuff. And certainly he has been a big part of some of the key things that have happened in wrestling down through the years. There's no doubt about it, that's for sure. Jeff Jarrett, of course, stands there on his own there, of course. He was very, very good in this. I thought he was very, very clear about what a shit show it was and stuff like that, and the stain that it left both on WCW and on everyone's career involved in it. And of course, WCW was synonymous with this type of worked shoot kind of situation, to the point where they eventually started pushing it too far and it was too often, and it lost its momentum. And what it did was, it was like the boy who cried wolf, really, you know, and eventually people were just, you know, clued into it and stuff like that. So it didn't really work. It kind of got to a stage where it was kind of insulting, you know. Let's take some comments first. Morris is in. The gloves are off at Russo and Meltzer now. Yeah, absolutely. 100% we're going to be talking about that, Morris. Check out Morris's channel as well, GP Productions Podcast. Awesome stuff. If you're a wrestling fan, the man is spoiling you at the moment. Spoiling you. Was Sting in this one, Niall? No, Sting wasn't a part of this one. Sting has always been. You go back and you look at Sting's career. Sting's career has been kind of pretty clean cut, and never really got caught up in too much stuff. It'd be very unusual to find a dark side of the ring where Sting has a heavily involvement in it. He's always been fairly clean down through the ages and stuff like that. So no, he wasn't involved in this one. But yeah, it talks about Russo going into the business and stuff like that, and obviously he worked his way all the way up. And we know the story about, you know, him burning the candle at both ends. There's no family life, young kids, all this kind of stuff. The wife's obviously giving him a hard time because she's rearing the kids and she's struggling back home. He's not getting home too much because we know that Vince works them 24/7, 365. He sets the example and he wants everyone to follow it. So it gets to a point where Russo approaches Vince and he wants some help, or he wants a bit more time off, and obviously they created the SmackDown brand as well, and now he was going to have to write 2 shows. He wasn't getting much more help. He said he wasn't offered a whole lot more money, and he has a head-to-head with Vince, and he walks out over the kids, basically, or cites the lack of family time and being able to help them out and all that kind of stuff as a reason for leaving. Toddles off and goes to WCW. Niall, RVD is all elite. Yeah, I've seen that, Daz. That's mad. I wonder, Daz, where that's going to lie now, because I know there was plans, obviously Mania 40s in Philly next year. So obviously that would lead us to believe that there was a plan to induct into the Hall of Fame and all the ECW originals. So it'd be interesting to see, does RVD have any involvement in that, or is he all elite all the way to all in, or is that it, you know? Henry's on. What's the crack, Niall? Just came in to give video. Like, always appreciate it, Henry. Love your support, my friend. Hope you're having a good week. Hope you had a great weekend of shows, Henry. Check out Henry's channel as well. Absolutely banging out the content at the moment. Big up Morris and Daz. Hey, Henry, let's get something organised. Pop. Yeah. Pop me an email. There you go, Henry. What more could you want with that kind of support? But yeah, that brings Russo in, and at the time Bischoff isn't there. Bischoff has exited the building, but Bischoff comes back in. They bring him back in, and these guys don't get on. And obviously, Vince Russo's relationship with Hogan is quite fractured. Let's say they don't really trust each other and stuff like that, which is kind of a common theme in the wrestling business. There is a level of lack of trust and paranoia that runs through the wrestling business at the best of times. But this obviously was an interesting dynamic and stuff like that. So obviously Bischoff comes back in, and this kind of sets things alight a little bit because these two men don't see eye to eye. Russo is in there, he's doing the booking and the writing and the creative and stuff like that, and Bischoff is being brought back in to kind of oversee it. And this is kind of where we get into the episode where it's kind of like guys are getting paid to take responsibility, but they're passing the responsibility around. And maybe that's a case after the fact and stuff like that. Sometimes when the thing doesn't go to plan and it's a shit show, people want to pass the parcel at the party, don't they? RVD is already signed into corporate duties for WrestleMania 40 with those mad VIP packages. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, so what they do is they kind of have two kind of factions that they're dealing with. But Russo was coming up with an idea where Jarrett is the champion, and Jarrett has been getting booked fairly strong to beat a lot of guys and a lot of legends and stuff like that. And it comes the time where he has to beat Hogan. And of course, we get the story that Hogan has full creative control, which is crazy in a business like this. You give that any wrestler, it's madness. And this is where, as much as people give out about Vince McMahon is the man who sense checks all these things all the time and makes sure that you don't get into a situation like this where someone has full creative control, because that will never work. So Hogan really had Bischoff had laid it out that Hogan was going to get beaten by Jeff. That would be the last kind of legend to beat him, and then Jeff was going to pass the belt then to Booker T. Booker T was going to become WCW champion, and this is what Russo had laid out. So of course Bischoff and Hogan toddle up into the situation, and they are certainly not accepting that. Hogan has no interest in lying down for Jarrett and being that last legend kind of peg, kind of notch on the bedboard or whatever you want to call it in the career. And they go off and they devise another idea, and they turn around, they go to WCW board and they say they ain't doing it, this is what they want. And it comes down, and then they change the plan. And this is where it gets a bit hairy. The plan then changes insofar as what's going to happen is kind of like a Montreal screw job kind of work, shoot, all that kind of blurry line kind of stuff. Hogan is going to be Jarrett in the ring. He's going to take the belt, and then he's going to go missing for a couple of months. And in that time, then they're going to have a new WCW champion. And then Hogan is going to come back at Halloween Havoc, and he's going to challenge the current champion and say that he is the real champion, basically. Russo doesn't like any of this, kind of sells that narrative that no, but apparently that's what's going to happen. So you can see the way it goes down in the ring, which is something I really, really hate. This is kind of, you can imagine the meetings that were going on here, and you can imagine Russo. Russo probably feels that he's responsible for this, but he's getting railroaded by the two boys. And of course, this is not the first time in history that Bischoff and Hogan would have railroaded that. And I mean, we seen the kind of stuff that went on at TNA and stuff like that. So no surprise. Morris is in. So I believe this is a short-term AEW deal. That caliber of wrestling in front of 90,000 people, who will pass it up? Absolutely. That's what I'm thinking. It's all in, and maybe a couple of more shows after, and then we're on the road to WrestleMania 40. But this is the scene. You know, when we think about WCW, as much as some of the stuff that we liked in it, we always think of these like Tower of Terrors and Finger Poke of Doom and this kind of shenanigans and crap. And the way it went down like this was really, really distasteful. You can see by Jarrett when he's interviewing on it that like it still sticks in his side and stuff like that, you know. So you get this situation where Hogan's going ballistic on the mic, and then Jarrett lies down like this. He gets pinned like this. Russo throws the belt to Hogan. Russo walks off. Jarrett literally rolls out of the ring and heads backstage and just basically heads off to wherever he was. Hogan is going apoplectic, but he leaves under a shroud of core, really, with Bischoff. They head off on a plane. They think they've done their job. And basically, everything just explodes while Hogan and Bischoff are on a plane. They land, they turn on their phones are lit up, because what's happened is Russo has gone back into the ring, and you can see the shock of this when you're looking at the episode. Just look at the commentator's desk. They haven't got a clue about any of this. This wasn't on their sheet. It wasn't part of the program, and they're just flabbergasted. Tony Schiavone is just sitting back and hasn't got a clue. And it's just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. You see the three boys, because it's Bash the Beach, they're in their Hawaiian shirts and stuff, and they're just flabbergasted. They don't know what to say, they don't know what to commentate. So this full-blooded New York Italian, whatever you want to call him, gets in the ring and absolutely loses his shit. Like properly lost it. And this is where the lines get blurry, because Hogan and Bischoff knew nothing about this, apparently, that this wasn't supposed to happen. So there's a number of different stories that's going around. Some people say they knew exactly what was going to happen. Other people say they had no idea. They weren't in on this section of it and stuff like that. So Russo cuts a promo, a scathing promo on Hogan, to the point where Hogan decides then to sue WCW over defamation and stuff like that. So in the first court case, it doesn't hold up, because the argument is that you're talking about two characters, but they're not real people and all those kind of things. It's part of the wrestling business. Whatever the argument was made about, it gets thrown out. But they do in a second court case, maybe like a civil case or something, settle. So Hogan obviously gets his dollar bills. But Russo goes off on this scathing attack that leads to that. And then later on, they have a match, Jarrett and Booker T, and Booker T becomes WCW champion. But it's absolutely crazy what goes down. And the thing about it is, when you watch the episode, although we all know the detail and the breakdown and all that kind of stuff, it was absolutely it was just crazy the way it all evolved. I can't imagine what that day was like on location when the show was beginning to start and all that kind of stuff. And just the rewriting the scripts last minute, all this kind of stuff. We hear about it all the time, sometimes with Raw and with Vince and stuff like that, where you take the body of work that people have put together and suddenly just rip it up, throw it in the bin and change the whole show. And just the stress that it causes and the anxiety and the running around and the last minute kind of stuff. And these kind of things, when they happen, they never end well. We know they don't end well. And this was a big problem with this WCW stuff, because there was so many of these work shoots happening and stuff like that where you didn't know. The lines were so blurry. It became such a regular thing that it just lost its appeal in terms of its effect on the audience and stuff like that. And also, the audience began to piss on it really either way, if you like, you know. Meltzer comes on, of course, which Morris alluded to. Meltzer comes on. He says, "This is a story involving several serial lawyers from over 20 years ago. So it's hard to know what really happened." I think what he probably meant is, we know what really happened. It's hard to know who's kind of telling the truth or not telling the truth and stuff like that. But it's interesting at the start of the episode as well, because Meltzer is asked out straight about Vince Russo. And he says, you know, it was kind of, the question was kind of, did he help it or ruin it and stuff like that. Meltzer's of the opinion that he ruined it. So I know that's kind of it's going to be interesting, because that's going to create a huge dynamic on social media over the next few months and all. Cornette is absolutely perplexed on it. His feelings for Vince Russo are not unknown to the wrestling community, and I think it runs both ways, to be honest. But then it goes into kind of after it and stuff like that, and there's a back and forth, you know, and it's like, who knew what and who did what and what happened and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately what happens is WCW then moves on. Bischoff makes a play to buy it. He's almost over the line and buying it. And then they backtrack. They don't sell to him. And eventually in 2001, it goes to WWE. They purchased WCW, the brand, and they purchased the library. And I think it was somewhere in the region of about $4.5 million in total for both, which is these days would be an absolute steal when you think about the library that they got and also the content and the branding stuff. They just happened to make a shit of the invasion, really. They could have done it way, way better. Morris is in. Dave Meltzer will never achieve what Russo has in the business. Meltzer isn't even as a part of the business by people within it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%. But there's sometimes we question his stuff. We question his ratings. We question some of the, you know, the this of the year or that of the year and all that kind of stuff. We know he's kind of in bed with AEW and all that kind of stuff. but sometimes he's a tad bit right. Every so often. When did Sting join, Niall? Sting has always been a part of WCW. That Sting started out in Jim Crockett Promotions. Yeah, well, he started out way before that. He was down in Texas as a tag partner with the Ultimate Warrior and all back in the day. And then he moved up through into the ranks through Jim Crockett Promotions, got into a real good storyline. Came in as the Surfer Sting with the blonde hair, and ended up winning the World Heavyweight title off Ric Flair in a protracted storyline where he came out attacking the Horsemen, and he was the young kind of blood in there kind of thing, if you like. He was the upstart and stuff like that. He actually forced the title match with Flair through attacking J.J. Dillon. I remember it well on Jim Crockett Promotions. They were having a Ric Flair appreciation night in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the four horsemen were in town partying with the women and the limousines and the champagne and all that. And Sting had a match in the ring, and Sting then turned around. He called out Ric Flair, and Ric Flair wouldn't answer it. So J.J. Dillon went up, J.J. being the manager of the Horsemen. He went up to try and smooth it over. And Sting lost the rag. I remember Schiavone, I think it was interviewing, because I think David Crockett was down with the Horsemen celebrating their stuff along with a very, very young Jim Ross. He dragged J.J. Dillon. J.J. actually threw the champagne into Sting's face. Sting attacked JJ, dragged him over the ropes, hit him with the Stinger Splash, put him into the Scorpion, and the next thing, the Horseman hit the ring, and Sting bundles out of there. It's gas if you see him doing these roll throughs and stuff like that to get out of there and walk through the crowd. It was gas. It was gas to see it because it was so worked, because they could have caught him. They could have easily caught him, no problem. He didn't get out of town real quick. He kind of took his time getting out of there. But that led to a big storyline, basically, and a lot of super matches between Sting and Ric Flair, and it was a fantastic time in wrestling. I remember that as a kid; it was awesome. It's so real to me at the time. But yeah, as we know, Bischoff didn't get it, and it went off then to WWE. And this some people would say this is one of the triggers that really caused the downfall of WCW. Obviously, there was a lot of them and stuff like that, but this was one that lit the fuse. And then we know the impact that WWE had on buying WCW. Changed the face of the wrestling business, and not necessarily in a good way, because you need competition, and they bought out their competition. You know, we know the name on the contracts, McMahon, Shane McMahon, but we know it wasn't Shane McMahon, of course. So yeah, pretty disappointing from that point of view, the way it went out. But this night was definitely part of that fuse that led to that explosion, really, you know. I asked Paul Roma about Flair's 16 world titles, and he said he lost it 16 times too. That's actually a very good answer, Morris, isn't it? That's a good answer. He lost it 16 times too. Yeah, I know, but interesting stuff. Big up Morris's dads, and Morris likewise dads. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it was quite an interesting show. I don't know how much I learned from it, because I knew most of it at this stage. It's been covered numerous times. Jarrett kind of sitting there as the disgruntled, upset child who was brought into the toy shop and didn't get the toy. Russo fighting his corner, having his say on it and stuff like that. And it's Hogan, who wasn't featured in the documentary, which is kind of probably difficult to get him involved in it and stuff like that, but it would have been nice to have some sort of commentary in there from him and stuff like that. I'm sure he would have had plenty to say. Bischoff, of course, played his part, which was very, very interesting and stuff like that. But these were the main characters in this absolute shit show that evolved and unfolded. But this is the penultimate episode. Tonight we have Marty Jannetty, which is going to be crazy. And I'd imagine if that's the last episode, that is going to set us up with a desire and a want for season 5. Be interesting to see what way they do that. Morris is in, Voice TV. They can't afford Hogan money. Yeah, absolutely, Morris. Morris, we know, don't we? We do know, Morris. No doubt about it. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, the last episode. I will cover it hopefully before the weekend. I'll get to watch it hopefully tomorrow at some stage. I won't be staying up late tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the series that we've put together, reviewing these. We've had highs, lows, drugs, drink, death, abuse. Everything is in it there, and they are tough to do. And because they're tough to do, not too many channels do them or touch them, but we've always done them. I've done all 4 series now at this stage, and I've covered them all from start to finish. So we follow through and we see what we have to do. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. As always, let us know what you thought of Bash the Beach 2000. Let us know if you were semi-convinced one way or the other. If you had to pick a side, whose side would you be going with? But certainly interesting. I'm not too sure, Daz. I'm not too sure. I would assume the Rockers are mentioned at some stage. It's a big part of his career, of course, and stuff like that. I would imagine it would have to be touched on. So I'm sure they will touch on it. But there's a lot of crazy stuff that's associated with this guy. This guy for a number of years was, let's say, on a Madden. And we're going to find out how mad it is. And I'm sure Darkseid got stuck into this because they'll want to send this off with a good rating, because this will be their last show on Voice. So they're looking for a new home. So they want to pump those ratings and stuff like that. So it's not surprising they haven't left Marty Jannetty to the last one. Because if Bash to the Beach was the last one, it wouldn't necessarily smash that interest as much as maybe this Marty Jannetty one. But I think overall, I think they've done another stellar job on the season. My overall thoughts on it so far is it hasn't gotten as dark as the other ones did, but still dark enough. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments. As always, smash a like on the video, folks. Hit that bell notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel. And subscribe to all the channels in the chat as well, please. Support everyone. Let's bring all these content creators on this journey with us. If you're looking for lots and lots of wrestling content as well, Morris's channel is just loaded to the gazills with it. And we'll be bringing you more and more content as we look back into the vault from the 4 Podmen and the old Dynamos Podcast Network as well. We're going to be releasing some interesting episodes over the next few weeks. So let us know your thoughts on them as well. And we will talk to you again real soon. Cheers.